Hey, peace and love, family. I want to do a video today on discharge. It's something I get asked about the most out of any of my videos, anything I talk on. So I want to come in and answer a few things that people ask about, some frequently asked questions. But the way I'm going to do it today is basically in the form of I'm going to do a list of things people should do before they start discharging. And I'm not going to do this necessarily in a numbered list or a list of things that are most important, but I'm going to give out just, maybe about 10 things that are pretty crucial to getting things done, discharging and doing things properly. And maybe breaking down a few things that people don't really understand when people talk about discharge. Because there's a lot of people that preach different methods out here, and I don't go into a lot of them. I try and do things a little bit more organic, but I want people to understand that I still do encourage doing your paperwork, getting things done. It's just my process is a little bit different. But when you're getting into discharge in general, and this will be the first thing go, I say you need a banking dictionary, and basically when you're going into different areas of study, different degrees, law dictionary, when you're studying a lot of things, concerning discharge or almost any legal process, is one of the best dictionaries to have. But a banking dictionary is a little bit more specific. And, I give you an example. Let's say if you're in the real estate, they have property dictionaries and property books that go into that mode or that degree of law a little bit more specifically. So if you were looking for something pertaining to property, it's not saying that you couldn't find it in the Black's Law Dictionary, but it would be a little bit more specific looking into a dictionary that's specific to that subject, because it'll have more things broken down better, maybe different case law, different things that are probably even more updated, you know. And you just really need to get a basic overall really good reference for where you're going to be defining your terms of everything that you're talking about. Because when it comes to discharge and law in general, like most people know, is why y'all probably even watching, is because it's very specific. So from there, I'd say study public and private. You need to know the difference between public, things like the social, public corporations, public figures, entities versus operating in the private. You know, Mm. In the private, we operate with contracts. We may use buffers as far as um, trustees or a PO box, as opposed to giving your direct domicile address, things of that sort. Trying to have a separation. And the thing is, when you're discharging too, the status of these companies, of whether they're public or private, the government or whoever it is that you're trying to get to accept your instrument, their status also affects whether they're able to accept a private discharge. And people don't realize that a lot of times, and they may go a little bit too far into what I say is trying to uh, force the instrument on someone. And that's when people catch cases and have issues like that there, because you're trying to push something in a legal process that you maybe heard someone talk about, but you have your concept wrong and are coming at these people incorrectly, and you just don't know it. Like, that's really how it is a lot of times. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people out here teaching things wrong, or not giving you all the information you need to do enough study to go in and then discharge particular things because it's different for every situation. Which brings me really to my next point is you need a plan. You can't just think every single thing or one particular instrument is going to work all the way across the board. You know, it just simply doesn't work like that. Some people try and A for V everything. And think that that's going to work. I mean, I can't attest to that. That's one of the processes where I understand the concept behind it, but I can't necessarily say I've confirmed any of the ones that I've tried. But I have different methods that I use when I'm trying to discharge. So I have a plan, when I'm going into something because if you're trying to discharge a debt versus trying to pay a bill, you may find yourself in a adverse situation. And that's partially because not everyone even understands the difference between a bill and an actual debt, a certified debt. A bill is a contract. You know, a lot of people, they tell me they want to discharge, and I'm okay. What are you trying to discharge? Yeah, my light bill, my phone bill, this and that. Well, I'll break it down like this here. See, um, a bill is a contract. It's a current contract a lot of times. So satisfying a contract is different from a debt. A debt could be better defined as a contract that hasn't been fulfilled but is now on the public record. I'll give you a real good example of this too. Let's say you go to the hospital emergency room and they send you a bill. Well, the method, going into the plan, the method that I would take to discharge or to fulfill that contract would be a different process than I would use if, let's say, the contract was never fulfilled and it became a debt because of basically they put it on your credit. That they sell their debt from that contract to a credit company and then they put that up on the public record. Now that's no longer a bill, it's a debt. So there's a difference. That's not a contract. That's a contract that was unfulfilled that they've now put on the public record. And you would go a different method of discharging that than you would fulfilling the original contract. So, you know, you need to study and plan and know what it is you're trying to do. Next up, I'd say have an EIN. 9/8 EIN, especially people, is what they talk about, the foreign EIN. Um, it's basically a form of a CPN or a credit profile number, which is an alternate to using your social security number. It is the basic definition I could give of what a CPN is, which a lot of people like to use that 9/8 number, that foreign EIN for a foreign trust. And that's one of the things that when you're trying to operate private, you want to have something like that on deck just in case. Um, there are other ways of not using a social and not giving any number in some situations, and I won't go into that now. But you know, just to avoid having to ever use that social, EIN 9/8 EIN is one of the best things to get. Now another thing I'm gonna say is a notary. You definitely want to have a notary that knows you, preferably someone that you've known for some years if you can, and not just someone that you go to, their business and patronize their business enough, because you really want to be able to ask this person some questions, give them a little bit of insight onto what it is you're trying to do when you're trying to operate with your legal processes, your discharges, things of that sort, and be able to use them like for notary presentments and things of that sort. and someone you know is keeping excellent records just in case maybe they were ever subpoenaed into court. You need to know that this person is going to be right and have their stuff together. So if that time ever did come, then you're not having to worry about them not being official on point and it ruining whatever your case may be. Next thing I would say, your mailing supplies. Um, and I do a whole like course on mailing almost by itself. That's a whole nother topic. But you want to have your mailing labels, your envelopes, your paper, printer, things of that sort. Really, going into my next point too, office and your office supplies. They really all go together. Um, but I say office separately because you need your own computer or laptop, printer, um, different types of papers, your regular letter size, legal size, security papers, check papers, bond papers, things of that sort. If you're going to be discharging, you need to have a little bit of it all. And you need to have your own office, not going, into Office Max, Staples, somewhere like that there. And trying to print up private security instruments because Johnny Q employee might not understand discharge. I'll say more than likely they don't understand discharge and operating through trust and things of that sort, and may consider what you're doing illegal or think that it's illegal just off of them not being informed and not having a certain amount of knowledge behind this in the first place. You know, so to avoid um, public mistakes, I'll say it would be best to have your own office so that way you don't have to worry about things like that. And if you do make a mistake yourself, you can go back and correct it without having to go back to somebody else's establishment, pay more money, when you have your own office, your own supplies, and everything together. Now, next up, I'd say have your trust together. You need to have your assets together, all your property, your straw property, all of that. You need it in trust. At bare minimum, I'd say, have express trust, through some of your documents. Speaking of your trust, if you don't have anything already together and filed on the record, and there are different ways to go about trust, especially as Moors, you could have a Islamic waqf that is totally out of jurisdiction, but that's a whole nother story I'm not trying to even get into right now because trust is one of the longest subjects in law, and I'm really not even an expert in it. I'm still learning trust. Trust, may take years to really master. So I'll just say, it's a very good mode of operation. Now, another thing, and this is one thing that a lot of the people that talk secure party talk about is having a contract. You know, you may want to learn who these people are in the high places that will be handling discharge, such as maybe the treasurer, the comptroller, and other high offices that deal in this matter and subject. That's part of the plan, actually. But to specifically get these people under contract, even if it's through tacit acquiescence, but you know, sending your contract to them, making sure you get that green card back in the mail, signed, return receipt from the mail, part of your mailing supplies, so that it's part of your plan. You have a contract. You've done your due diligence before you even start trying to discharge and put these people, on proper notice of what's going on. So if they start seeing instruments coming under your name, your trust name, your corporation, or however you choose for your mode of operation, that these people know what's going on, you know, because if not, these would be the people, on top, or that would be the bosses of the people that would be trying to prosecute you if something was to go wrong. So you want to have these people on notice for sure, before you get into this. Discharging is one of those things that I say be careful and cautious with, and it's something that shouldn't really even be abused. And a lot of people that are coming into this movement, thinking, that, oh, since it's true they're supposed to discharge everything dollar for dollar, then now I should never have to pay for shit again. You know, they just want to sit around, be lazy, and do nothing. And it's really hard to help people with that mindset. A lot of times, I don't answer people like that immediately because people like that need to do a little bit more studying. And there's also people that they want to get this information. Well, I'm not gonna say they want to get this information. Everybody wants the information, but people come at me or at other people that know about this information in, but they're in dire emergency, like needed to do it right now, and that is the wrong time. You need much more time to study, to plan, to get your dictionaries, your notary. You need to understand all of these concepts very in depthly, and actually brings me to my next point. You need to have your templates for your instruments um, that you're going to be trying to use to discharge, because there are different methods, like I spoke of. Um, a lot of people like the A for V, the accepted for value method. I'm not particularly into that one, but there are many others: promissory notes, bill of exchange, money orders. There are affidavits of discharge, notice of defaults, and plenty other things that you need to not just have these templates for, but you need to study and study when is best to use these different forms. Even GSA bonds, you should have templates of it. It's another, basically, it's another form of negotiable instrument. Um, People that are familiar with the writ of habeas corpus, basically the writ that gets you out of jail. Well, a lot of people don't know that the GSA bonds, or the bonds behind the writ that actually get you out, because it's the bonds that take the place of the body. That's similar to your bail bond. When you get out on a bail bond, it's a secured or unsecured bond that it is being used in place for the body as the surety. You know, and that's another one of those terms you need to know from your banking dictionary. And not just your law dictionary, but this is stuff that needs to be put together and studied very deeply before you even consider discharging. You should know the templates in and out like the back of your hand. Your notice of defaults, your promissory notes, whatever it is, bill of exchange. You should know, the laws for it up and down. You should know what they say, like the back of your hand, to know that, you haven't said anything that was out of line. And not only that, you should be able to look at other people's templates and see if they're mistakes, because you're so into the information that you're like, hey, it's missing something. I can't use this. I can modify it, because it does have some good information, but I can't use this by itself. you know like, it's a full and thorough knowledge that you really have to have. And last thing I'm gonna put on my list is the authenticated birth certificate and claim with it, because this is a document that It definitely deals into citizenship, but it also deals into commerce because there's a bond behind it. Like most people speak of, a lot of people would like to say that the birth certificate itself is a bond. I disagree on that because of specific codes that I know that I'm not going to give out at this time, maybe some other time. But I will say that the birth certificate itself is a bond document, which, when you define a bond document, that's a document that goes along with a specific bond. So, in that context, you know, I'll say that I could prove that it's a bond document. You can't prove it physically being a bond because it's missing a few elements, and maybe if the original one has these elements written on it, like an original issue amount, which people say it does, then you could classify it as a bond. But when you actually go into the codes about the birth certificates, the minor accounts, treasury accounts, things of that sort, they pretty much spell out what's there. So it's not a question of is there a bond, it's a question of what does it take to access that bond. And if you have authentication or into that kind of information, watch some of my earlier videos, you would know what I say about that. And the claim of the birth certificate, we have one of the best, I should say, claims. It's an affidavit of independent administration. And when me and the other Moors that worked on that, we didn't realize how much we had done with that document. But 90% of the things people talk about in their status correction process, we have in that document. It's like 4 pages legal, the one that I have filed on the official public record. I actually have a few copies of it filed, and um, it wasn't really till I got into other forms of law and things that I realized how significant just even the title to that document is. And I won't go into that right now, but the point is, you want to have that birth certificate authenticated and a proper claim to it, and our claim goes into every side of it, not just ownership in particular, but everything from the financial side of it to uh, the citizenship side of it, and corporate expatriation and things of that sort. That I really need to go into a little bit later, because that's another thing that's misunderstood when I say it. A lot of times people don't understand, or people may not have seen the court cases that are actually on file and be privy to that knowledge. Like, you know Moors talk about nationality and citizenship, but not many of them speak on the fact that you have to expatriate to really lose that U.S. citizenship. That's the only true rebuttal. But the thing is, expatriation in one sense could make you stateless. So there's a qualified expatriation that's just from the municipal corporation, but not from the land that I teach, which is different. So um, with that, you know, we're still part of the republic. And when you're going into commerce, discharge, and things of that sort, you don't want to, how should I put this? You don't want to be in a position where they're, they're classifying you as a U.S. citizen when you are making the position that you're not. And if you haven't taken certain steps or never even heard someone speaking like this, then I suggest you really study into the subject or hit me up. I always tell people I'm easy to access. Email Walter Bay, the number 7, more, MOOR, at gmail.com. Y'all can get at me anytime. Peace and love, family.